a present from the girl you wanted to leave behind.
Zounds! A knight rescued by a woman.
We'll talk about how times have changed later on, Blackie. Come on!
Hello and welcome to the WIP, the What If podcast that's a work in progress. I'm your host, Slim of the James, Sir Slim James, the Slim James, and I'm coming to you solo today because this is a very special bonus episode describing the entirety of the new Black Knight series that just recently ended after 5 issues. As it's come to this, a clip show, I'll actually be presenting to you the audio from the What If Pod Blasts I put out, 5-minute or less audio clips available on whatifcolors.tumblr.com, where I've reviewed each issue, maybe 2 in 1, either way, a compilation of those reviews. I'm probably Black Knight's biggest and onlyest fan. It started out semi-ironically. Actually, I take that back. It started out, and you might remember, I might be repeating myself from, the What If podcast, episode something or other, Blackest Night. But basically, my love of the Black Knight started from my Marvel 50 years anniversary book, where it talked about the Black Knight Atlas comics, and so Black Knight #1 in all of its stark black and yellow contrast. And I thought, that's neat. And fast forward to 2012 or so, and I found 3 of the 4 issues from the Black Knight Limited series from 1990 or 89 or so in a quarter bin. And so I just got the 4th issue, and I read it, and it's basically a modern tale of Sir Percy and Dane Whitman's back in the past. And so I found all of that very interesting, and Arthurian lore via Marvel Comics has always been quite intriguing to me. And so my semi-ironic love of the Black Knight turned into something legitimate, because I spent, $40-50 on the Black Knight #1 from 1955. It's pretty poor condition, but other poor condition ones on eBay have sold for $100. So, I could at least get my money back for it, probably. And then I also picked up the Avengers 48, the first appearance of Dane Whitman, and Tales to Astonish, the first appearance of the second evil or Black Knight, as well as other one-offs that he's been in. My love of Black Knight has extended so deep that I even own Ultra Force #2. I found it in a quarter bin, because the Black Knight, he was the key, he was the link between the Malibu Ultraverse and the Marvel Universe, and Marvel bought Malibu Comics in the 90s, so, that just shows what they thought about the Malibu Ultraverse, that your C-level Avenger was going to be the leader of their preeminent super team. But I digress. Let's, actually, just a quick overview. The Black Knight returned in 2015 as an ongoing series written by Frank Thierry, drawn by Luca Pizzari, and I think the whole thing was pretty good. It certainly set up a different, interesting character dynamic, the Black Knight being a bit more possessed by the evil Ebony Blade, and he's actually ruling a parallel universe, not parallel, well, kind of, weird world, piece of it called New Avalon, or so, something left over from the, whatever they called it, the event that collapsed all universes together. Cataclysm. Nope, that's DC. Either way, on to the reviews. Hello and welcome to the WIP. The What If podcast presents the What If Pod Blast, a 5-minute or less explosion of audio goodness, courtesy of the architect, the host, the Slim James, that's me. Why under 5 minutes? It's what fits on a Tumblr feed. And if you're not listening to this on the Tumblr feed, check it out at whatifcolors.tumblr.com. An update on the main podcast, theslimjames.com/WIP, for anyone who wants to take a look at that. I wrote the next episode touching on the captains in the Marvel Universe, so it should be a good one. I feel like it's pretty well explored, so take a look for that in the next month or so. Today, I'm going to do a quick review of the Black Knight #1 that came out last month. As a Black Knight aficionado, owning all of his first appearances all the way to Black Knight #1 in 1955, I feel compelled to comment on his first ongoing series since that eponymous debut 60 years ago. It's written by Frank Thierry, looks so good, bring a tear to your eye, and drawn by Luca Pizzari, looks so good, bring a pizza to your rye. Black Knight seems pretty compelling in that it's far removed from the normal Marvel Universe. Black Knight ruling New Avalon, which is apparently also old Weird World, sort of a fraction or a fracture of it caused by the whole Secret War universe exploding thing. Black Knight is shown to have a dark undercurrent thanks to the tinge of the ebony blade and its lust for human life, wrought of him decapitating the old ruler of Weird World to become the new king. There's also mention of an interdimensional portal or something spitting out miscellanea into New Avalon, so there's some potential there of, what's going to come shooting out of there to give him some antagonists going forward. The first issue ends with a hook with the appearance of the Uncanny Avengers leading into the next issue, with some crossover appeal to probably buoy this new debuting book with a character that hasn't been featured prominently in 20 years. Unfortunately, I don't think this is the answer to Black Knight's ongoing series-related woes. I might be wrong, and the exploration of Dane Whitman as a character battling an internal evil due to his very weapon, the Ebony Blade, could be compelling, but I think having it in a far-flung quasi-dimension like New Avalon could make it expendable when it comes time for Marvel to cancel everything and relaunch number ones that are all newer and all differenter, which seems to happen on a yearly basis. Good lord. 2 Gwen Stacy Spider-Gwens number 1 in the same year. But I do hope this leads to a renewed interest in the character and further exploration of his dark side, even if they do cancel the series, which is obviously completely premature at this point. But, it would be great if they kept a focus on the character and brought him into the Avengers, where he's historically been a recurring character. I will say, for all my negativity, I actually like this book and the concept. It's well written, and the drawing, particularly, I'm looking at a silent splash of the Black Knight decapitating the old ruler of New Avalon, and it's very good, and it captures some mood. But for all my negativity, I do actually like the book and the concept. Giving Black Knight a realm to rule over and explore the character as sort of a benevolent king that's battling internal evil, that's a good setup, and you could, do stuff that you don't normally see with Marvel characters. This is not down to earth. This is actually straight up fantasy, and it's a good change of pace. And there's potential for turning Black Knight all the way evil down the line, turning him into a despot, and there could also be, a successor to Dane Whitman who's less evil. But that's all just hypothetical. But what I'm saying is, this seems like a good jumping off point for a lot of exploration of the character. I would really like to see a renewed interest in the Black Knight because he's one of Marvel's oldest and most resilient characters, coming back in many forms over the years and seemingly always just popping up. And in this later iteration, I hope it continues going forward. And here's hoping that this is only the beginning of a renewed focus on the Black Knight. Be sure to check out the What If podcast on YouTube, iTunes, or theslimjames.com/WIP. Hello and welcome to the WIP. The What If podcast presents the What If Pod Blast, a 5-minute or less audio explosion of goodness courtesy of the architect, the host, the Slim James. That's me. Why under 5 minutes? It's what fits on a Tumblr feed. If you're not listening to this on the Tumblr feed, check it out at whatifcolors.tumblr.com. So, our little blast today is Black Knight numbers 2 and 3 review. I'm glad I waited and bought these issues back to back, proving the value of good cover art. The painted cover of number 3 by Julian Totino Tedesco, possibly Julian, I think Julian, with a furious Black Knight imprisoned with the reflection of the Uncanny Avengers on the bars, lured me back in. And as Black Knight's biggest and onlyest fan, I had to fill the gap with number 2. Phrasing. It's issues 2 and 3 of The Black Knight serve to fill us in on how we got to where we are, using the parallel timeline techniques where we follow 2 storylines simultaneously. How Black Knight went on the lam, and what I presume to be the mysterious 8-month Deus Ex Machina period left by Marvel after the latest Secret Wars, so we could get a lot of this mysterious flashback storytelling, and the current storyline of the aforementioned Avengers working to bring in the renegade Dane Whitman. Apparently the Ebony Blade has gone full bonkers, possibly because it pierced Dane and made a crazy infinite feedback loop whilst on a mission with the Avengers, and Dane killed the exemplar known as Carnivore, who's been around since 1977, so I guess issue 2 is kind of a big deal. Not really. Issue 3, Steve Rogers, Captain Old Man, leads the charge to bring him to justice, but faces the hordes on Weird World, including Toad People, who have faced the Hulk, possibly in like his second book, or I don't know, one of the early 60s ones, Space Apes, Amazonians, and Giants, essentially scrap races of the Marvel Universe tossed onto Weird World. Steve Rogers pulls a dick move, getting Dane's hordes to turn their back on him by saying they'll leave peacefully if the hordes don't defend Dane. The races, already leery of the rule of Lord Whitman, oblige, and in a cool moment, Dr. Voodoo summons the spirits of past Black Knights, including Pirate Black Knight, Cowboy Black Knight, and Mummy Black Knight, along with what appears to be 90s Leather Jacket Black Knight, who fight over themselves to get the precious ebony blade. Conspicuous by his absence is Sir Percy, original Black Knight, who I believe is actually absorbed directly into the blade itself, unless that's been retconned out or something. You know, it could happen. That's what these things tend to do. Either way, I love this reference to the notion that there were umpteen Black Knights over the years, most of whom have gone unseen by the reader, and the fact that they're obsessed with the blade gives it a sort of the Lord of the Rings feel, and the Black Knight character, it has a more sinister edge that's been alluded to over the years, but it's really turned up in this series. It gives the character something to latch onto as a defining characteristics other than cool-looking knight guy who's third-tier Avenger. Also, in the flashback, we see that Black Knight made it into Weird World via Quinjet into unexplained fuchsia dimensional rift out of nowhere. Back to now, Steve punches out Dane, and we're left wondering what will happen in issue number 4. Frank Thierry, looks so good, brings a tear to your eye, is doing a bang-up job writing this, including reining in Deadpool's jokes in this appearance with the Avengers, and the art by Luca Perazzi and Kev Walker is good, with the titular knight having some good textures on his complex costume. I really can't wait 2 months to get the next 2 issues back-to-back, so that I'd rather wait 2 and then have 2 rather than 1 and 1. Black Knight's a thing again! Be sure to check out the What If podcast on YouTube, iTunes, theslimjames.com/WIP, giantsizecomicthings.com, all that good stuff. Did my description titillate you, Turner?
It did. I like that you brought up Carnivore, because you said he first appeared in 1997?
1977.
Oh, 77. Wow.
Yeah.
I thought I might have had the first appearance, because I have a big, long thing. He ties in with the Juggernaut, because he's one of the exemplars, but not Katorax. So I have a lot of his storylines. That was interesting.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was about it.
All right. But, so, does Black Knight sound interesting to you?
No.
All right, there it is.
But you got to catch him quick, because he's not going to last.
Yeah, probably. Especially this Weird World stuff. He's going to be back in the thick of the Marvel Universe probably quickly. Or not. Who knows?
Right in the background.
I think I'm going to get the next few issues at least. So.
Well, there's only a few more.
Exactly. Hello and welcome to the WIP. The What If podcast presents the What If Pod Blast, a 5-minute or less audio explosion hosted by the host, the architect, the editor-in-chief, the Slim James. That's me. Why is this less than 5 minutes? It's what fits on a Tumblr feed. And if you're not listening to this on the Tumblr feed, check it out at whatifcolors.tumblr.com. Now, first thing and only thing, I don't want to say I told you so, but when I heard The Black Knight was returning to us after 60 years without a solo series, me and the franchise, my co-host on the What If podcast, we figured it wouldn't last too long. I thought it might have 10 issues, but it turns out, boom, done after 5 issues. Yes, that's right. So, we'll see how it wraps up next month, but I bought Black Knight issue number 4, and I mean, just a quick review. What's a Black Knight comic book with no Black Knight? He's chained up the entire time in a prison or something, and, you know, I claim to be Black Knight's bestest and onlyest fan, but I didn't even know that the Sir Percy was going to be the one to encourage him to start killing people again. I thought Sir Percy was a good guy, but apparently he's been tainted by the evil blade sometime too. So there you go. Dane Whitman is talking to Sir Percy's ghost in the prison, and the Avengers are running around. Steve Rogers was like, hey, we're just kidding about wanting to conquer Weird World / New Avalon last time, but you know, you still made the threat, Steve, you jerk. So the new Avengers are fighting hordes of people. It gets kind of confusing. I think the hordes are the people that are like sort of half subjugated by the Black Knight, so they don't like his regime, but they also don't like the Avengers. It gets kind of messy. These races of weird monsters attacking the Avengers. Basically, the emotional climax of it is that Dane Knight beseeches the Avengers to let him rule New Avalon, sort of separated from the rest of Earth. And the Avengers want to take the blade so that the Ebony Blade doesn't possess Dane Whitman and make him sort of evil. One of the people from New Avalon was telling Steve Rogers that, in fact, Dane Whitman is a good guy, and he's their savior, protecting them from the evil regime of Tar, or something. Dark Ridge, that's a thing too. So basically they're underscoring that Dane Whitman's a good guy, but the Blade is evil, and Dane Whitman is accusing Steve Rogers of wanting the Blade for himself, already possessed by its evil grip. And to underscore that fact, the preview for issue 5, the ultimate issue, the finale, is red-eyed Steve Rogers wielding the Ebony Blade, standing over Dane Whitman. Is that just cover hype? Perhaps. Probably. So, basically, we're sort of at the end of the Black Knight, and, was this just a limited series in the guise of an ongoing? I mean, where do you go after this? Maybe Black Knight stays in New Avalon and does his thing. As it is, I think this is just sort of a way to reintroduce him. We get confirmation from whomever in Disney that they want to make Marvel movies forever. So, Black Knight is viable property in 10 years. So this could reestablish Avengers as or reestablish the Black Knight as a third-tier Avengers character, so that he can get a Netflix original series somewhere down the line, maybe. I don't know. Doctor Strange is introducing magic into the Marvel Universe, so, a magic Ebony Blade, I guess, could stand to reason. The first Black Knight series in 1955 lasted 5 issues, so this one, starting in 2015, 60 years later, lasts 5 issues. I'm sad to see it go, but it's one of those things. It's I didn't expect it to last long anyway, and hopefully this will lead to Black Knight sticking around more. And just a quick note, as always, Frank Terry's doing a good job with the character and the art's good enough. I really love the painted covers, so I'll be sad to see this go, but it's also nice to sort of get a nice, short, little, concise run that I can collect every issue of. So there's your silver lining. Be sure to check out the What If podcast on theslimjames.com/WIP. Welcome to the WIP. The What If podcast presents the What If Pod Blast, a 5-minute or less audio explosion. Why is it under 5 minutes? It's what fits on a Tumblr feed. I am your host, the architect, the Slim James, and if you're not listening to this on the Tumblr feed, check it out at whatifcolors.tumblr.com. Today I come to you with a heavy heart. It's a day I knew would come, not just because they announced it, but because of the subject matter. This is the last issue of the Black Knight supposedly ongoing series. It ended at issue number 5, which echoes the first ongoing series Black Knight had 60 years ago in 1955. Coincidence? I think so. Basically, getting down to it, the issue starts off with Namor screaming, "Imperious Rex!" So, if the next time you're in a fight with a guy, if you just scream, "I'm the king of everything!" it'll probably be pretty intimidating, so you can get the leg up. Namor is fighting Hydra agents in 1945 in the Bermuda Triangle. Ooh. Basically, one guy says, "Oh, I got the Satan Claw like Baron von Strucker. It's a cool new one." And then they get sucked into a black hole, into Weird World / New Avalon, apparently. We cut to present day Weird World / New Avalon, and it's revealed that let's see, what are they called? Fangs of the Serpent are actually the descendants of those Hydra members sucked into the Weird World back in 1945, and their leader is the deposed leader of Weird World's son, Caden Tar. He's talking with Baron von Strucker, who's apparently still alive. I guess he vacillates between life and death, as any good supervillain should. And basically, Baron von Strucker wants the Ebony Blade so that Hydra can invade Weird World and assumedly get a sweet base of operations to then take over the world, the real world, not the Weird World. and Caden Tar wants his kingdom back. So they think they got some conflicting goals there. But either way, we cut to Captain America, or Steve Rogers, Old Man Rogers, and he's wielding the ebony blade, going a bit nuts, and we see the fallen Avengers around him. But don't worry, because they're not dead, because that would be silly. But he just basically made them take a nap real quick. He took the ebony blade from Dane Whitman and is apparently going mad with power immediately, whilst Dane Whitman is trapped in a prison and screaming about needing the blade back. Brother Voodoo, Dr. Voodoo, Mr. Voodoo, either way, he astral projects and tells who the people holding Black Knight that they need to release him so that Steve Rogers can, Dane Whitman can take the blade back from Steve Rogers, and Steve Rogers will stop going so nuts. So we end up with like a three-way showdown. Caden Tar confronts Steve Rogers with the blade, and Dane Whitman shows up, and Caden Tar goes to stab Dane Whitman with the blade, but it can't because he's the Black Knight. He's the chosen one. And in the midst of all this, Dr. Mr. Brother Voodoo's astral form shows up and touches the hilt of the ebony blade, and he sees the truth that Dane Whitman is the only one who can wield the ebony blade at this time. And just to confirm this, Merlin pops in real quick and says that is what that is. So basically, Dane Whitman gets the ebony blade back, and Caden Tar stumbles backwards off the edge of the Valley of Screaming Death, or the Gorge of Screaming Death. And either way, Steve Rogers wants the blade back, but Dane just basically says, no, you shouldn't have it. And because addiction is that easy to kick, Steve Rogers is no longer addicted to the ebony blade. He just sees, oh, you're right, Dane. You can have it. It's all cool. And then the Avengers leave Weird World and leave behind the Black Knight historian, Ms. Somebody. Stevens, I guess. Yeah, who cares about her family? And Dane Whitman goes on to lead Weird World. Overall, this is an okay issue, and when I heard it was ending, I thought to myself, I wonder where it would have gone. And you can kind of see what was coming to fruition. That this would probably be this issue 5, and maybe the next issue would be the end of the Avengers arc and their appearance. We might have got more with Steve Rogers with the blade, and then Caden Tar and his Fangs of the Serpent / fake Hydra take over as the main villains for Dane to fight off and for control of Weird World. But, with this being the last issue and it being canceled pretty suddenly, you can see where they had to wrap up stuff pretty quickly. So instead, Caden Tar just stumbles backwards off of the edge of the cliff, and Steve Rogers just gives up the blade pretty easy peasy. So basically things that could have played out in another 6 issues just get wrapped up in about 3 or 4 panels each. What does this mean for Black Knight in the future? Well, for the current status quo, he's just leading Weird World. I suppose he can then just be an Avengers supporting character if they need an ally, or he could just have his own one-shots maybe appear. I thought he might be more of a foil with the ebony blade making him a bit darker, and so the Avengers he's sort of like a frenemy to the Avengers, but it seems like they ended on much better terms, so he's just a straight up hero. So basically Black Knight will disappear back into the ether again until it's time to revive the character for another go-round. So if you're interested in all of this, check out the What If podcast at theslimjames.com/WIP. Just another quick note that the art on this is pretty good, serviceable, gets the job done. I like crazy Steve Rogers. He's pretty cool looking. And the redesign of Black Knight was a good choice. I like the classic Black Knight, but then again, as Black Knight's biggest and onlyest fan, that's clearly going to be my MO. And Frank Thierry did the best he could with having to wrap up this story in about an issue rather than 5 or 6 issues, which just seems like where it's headed. I did like the concept of Black Knight fighting descendants of Hydra, and so that would be his nemesis for the foreseeable future. But alas, he was sort of, the whole thing was a little hamstrung with all the Avengers appear in every single issue of this, and so it's never really a Black Knight solo issue and concentrating on him. So, but I'm glad to have gotten 5 issues of the Black Knight as it was. So, on that note, hallelujah. And so, those were the reviews I did. I really enjoyed the Black Knight series. I'm a little sad to see it end prematurely. You could see where they were going with everything. But maybe he'll get another chance down the road. Maybe as a third-tier Avenger, back to his roots. What about Black Knight in the future? I'd love to see a MCU sort of take on Black Knight. Maybe not a movie, nobody would go see it, but if they're developing more and more Netflix series, if we can get Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu, certainly we could get a Black Knight series. It could be that Dane Whitman, you could follow a parallel story where Sir Percy is trying to find the Ebony Blade for the first time, and Dane Whitman is trying to track down the Ebony Blade, which is calling to him from the ages. It's his ancestors' birthright. And he gets the sword, maybe, and has to travel to New Avalon, a parallel world, to free them from tyranny. So he's presented in a more heroic light than the possessed by evil, bloodlust type. And yeah, you could, get some more fantasy pieces that you don't see in the MCU right now. The existence of Doctor Strange could sort of introduce magical elements into the Marvel Cinematic Universe that could make this a little more palatable. And you could end up with him sort of, as he is in the comics right now, a third-tier character that doesn't really have a lot of his own stuff going on. But if you give him an origin and establish him, then he could show up, in one of the myriad Avengers crossover movies with 67 characters. Or if Doctor Strange wants to form a mystical super team, with like leftover Ghost Rider and a Man-Thing. Black Knight, Ghost Rider, Man-Thing, and Doctor Strange. There's your new Avengers. Be sure to check out the What If podcast on theslimjames.com/WIP. So in closing, I will remind you to follow us on Twitter at theslimjames or at giant_size, theslimjames.com, giantsizecomicthings.com. The WIP What If podcast is on iTunes, on Stitcher, on YouTube, and on Vimeo. So go out there and find us. And remember, don't spend the rest of your life asking, what if?